one. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, and you know what that means. It's time to get nerdy, y'all. Welcome to episode number 154 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy. I am Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I have got a special guest with me today. The one, the only, Spanish the Menace.
Yo.
Welcome,
What's
Spanish.
up?
Dude, it's so good to have you here, man. I've known you for 6 years, and we've never done a pod together, so I'm hyped you're here.
Yep, no doubt.
Well, dudes, do this for the people, Spanish, because I know you from Twitch. People who are in the community know you, but for those listeners who maybe don't get to watch live, tell everyone just a little bit about you. What makes Spanish unique?
Well, the first thing is that this is the first Two Nerds in a Pod to have the guest on the east side.
That's right. Where are you at?
I'm from the great state of West Virginia, but I'm right just outside of DC and Baltimore, so I've been a Beltway kid all my life.
Nice. Now, gaming-wise, what's your bread and butter? What's your go-to as far as the type of stuff that you're into, nerdy stuff that you're into?
Oh, I pick a pretty decent variety of things. I kind of look for some things that are sometimes a little bit outside of the box. I mean, a battle royale. I mean, Fall Guys is kind of that outside of the box battle royale.
Nice.
I grew up on the arcade cabinets with fighting games and playing pinball, and
yeah. And you're really big into MLB, right?
Yes, I actually do have the MLB 19. The show cap on. I bought this with the Gone Yard edition when Bryce Harper was on the cover.
That's dope. So one thing that's going to be go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish what you were saying.
And I have all but the 18 edition because it was a Yankee on the cover and I'm a Red Sox fan.
Gotcha. So... I can't blame you for that. Well, one thing that's going to make today's episode kind of unique is, as much as I love Mac, by the way, he is out of town. He is on vacation, which is why he could not do the show today. As much as I love Mac, he's a PC guy. Spenis is a console guy, and I do a lot of console gaming. So the conversation today will be different because we're both a little bit more into console stuff. So I'm excited for us to have this discussion. Spanish, just to give kind of an update on my week, man, things have been really, really good. I've been streaming on Twitch. I've been creating content. I've been watching my Blazers give up 80 points in the first half of the NBA playoffs game last night. So that wasn't good. But other than that, man, things are good. Anything new happening in your life you want to share with the people? You just got a new bachelor pad, right?
Yeah, the first big thing is that I moved from my usual hub of one end of Martinsburg, and now I'm near the heart of town.
Nice. How do you like it so far?
Oh, the new place is great. I mean, I actually was able to build this setup in a matter of a few days. Nice. And I'm gonna pop this one out on the screen here.
Oh, what's he gonna bust out? Don't get us banned from Twitch. What are you showing the people?
I had been waiting for years to have this one pop up on the screen.
Nice. Now, for those who are listening on audio, what is that you're holding up?
This is a Tekken set. This is the Tekken 7 statue I got from the collector's edition when I bought it. Of a whole few years back.
Nice.
The funny thing is that it was one that I had been wanting to unbox for some time, but it had to remain but I couldn't do it because I didn't have the space.
You didn't want to compromise the original packaging. I feel you, Spinnis. I feel you, brother. And you want to just keep it nice.
I finally was able to bring it out. Finally, was able to bring it out of the box and actually get to have it on display in my setup.
That's dope, man. Well, very cool. Well, you know what, Spinnis? I don't have too much more to share that's not normal stuff. So I say we do what we do best, and we hop right into the gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
Let's get down to business.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen.
And we're defeating Huns while we're at it.
That's right, to defeat the Huns. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 154 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. We've got some great news to discuss today. Spinnis, I know that you are a Nintendo fan just like me, so let's start with some Nintendo news. This comes from GameInformer.com, written by Kimberly Wallace. We'll just read a little bit of the article. It looks like the Nintendo Switch just might be getting an upgrade. According to a Bloomberg report, a new version of the popular console is on the way that will support 4K graphics and more computing power. Other than that, details are scarce about any other enhancements until Nintendo potentially makes an official announcement. This isn't the first alternative version of the Switch. Last year, the Switch Lite, a hand-only version of the console that offered more battery life, debuted. So, Spennis, a 4K upgrade to the Switch. Is this something that you're interested in the least? Is this a good idea? Do we need this? What are your thoughts, man?
It's not a bad idea. I mean, Nintendo has generally been going with the technology that is solid, stable, effective, works. 4K has just now started to hit that point. So Nintendo has now said this is the right time to jump in.
Yeah, for sure.
On top of that, it's one of those things where Nintendo has been quite silent so far this year. And I don't know if you're necessarily going to run into the possible Nintendo Direct here that is rumored to be this Friday.
Yeah, we can mention that.
But all throughout the year, we've been hearing about the PS5 this, Series X that, and everybody's been speculating that these two Goliaths have been butting heads and causing a ruckus throughout all of 2020.
Right.
It's now time for the former Goliath that is Nintendo, that has now turned into the David of the gaming industry, to show us what it's got.
I'm with you. I grew up a Nintendo kid, man. So I've got a soft spot for him. And you know what? It's interesting because even though Maction is not here live to do the show, he is here in the chat and he's making some interesting comments and some statements. He says he wonders if Breath of the Wild will look better. And Alex Man 47, good friend of the show, also a Twitch streamer, says, until I see it, I can't believe any rumors for Nintendo items. So here's the thing. Here's my thing. If Nintendo is going to release a 4K Switch, they need to start making games that are 4K capable. And I don't believe any of the games are right now. Are they?
Not yet.
Right, of course not, because there's no 4K Switch. And so, of course, if people get a 4K Switch, they're going to want to see Breath of the Wild in 4K. That's one of the most beautiful games ever, right? Even not being in 4K. Excuse me, what did I say?
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the
Mario
Wild.
Odyssey.
Yeah.
Mario Kart.
Yeah, all
Mario
that.
Kart would be excellent in 4K.
Super Smash Brothers? Imagine that with a high refresh rate.
Super Smash Brothers. Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, all that stuff, man. Even
like a lot of those great Nintendo staples that we got in the first year, to have them come out in 4K, looking as stunning as it is.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Those are the things we need. But on top of that, also some of these new potential things. I know COVID has affected what Nintendo has been able to show us what they usually do, which is just as little by little works throughout the year.
Yeah, so Spennis, tell me this. You said there's a Nintendo Direct rumored for Thursday. What do you think we may see?
No, it's Friday.
Or excuse me, Friday. What do you think we may see if that ends up being a real thing? Are we getting a new Metroid, or what do you think will be announced if they come out this week?
Metroid Prime 4, I think definitely should be on the top of the list. I think that'll probably be one of those like right there, right at the end. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the second character in the Challenger Pack 2 be
for
announced
Smash Brothers
officially. Yep, for Super Smash Ultimate. The one that I really am like peaking for is Mario Kart 9. Possibly announcements on this new Switch. But I mean, this is almost now basically because of what Sony and Microsoft have already been announcing. This Direct to come out as soon as it possibly can is an imperative.
Yeah, and go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your thought, please.
Yeah, tech-wise, like I've said, Nintendo has not necessarily been the competitive one with Sony and Microsoft, but they have still been known to come out with a banger or few from time to time, especially game-wise. And when, not if, but when they do, you're going to see a lot of things that we haven't been prepared for.
Well, it's interesting because Microsoft has really taken the stance of we don't need to be in this console war. But yet Nintendo's still potentially choosing to come out with a new console next year to compete with those other consoles. So it's just an interesting thing. I'm not tired of my Switch. It came out after the PS4 and PS4 and Xbox One S. So I feel like it should have a couple more years left before they need to do upgrades, but that's just me. Alex Mann, who's a big Nintendo guy in the chat, he says, will a 4K Switch alienate current Switch owners so there will be a 4K game cart and normal cart and maybe only work for that type of console. So he's saying it could make it so that you got to buy a 4K cart for your 4K Switch, which would be frustrating to those of us who have built up a Switch library already. Just in the sake of time, we do got to.
If you come to the 4K, if you come with the 4K, there's still ways you could downscale that. There's still ways you can downscale that. Most of my setup now is mostly 1080p. So even with it be working in 4K, it's still going to pretty much guarantee itself working in 1080p.
Yeah,
and you might even get better you may even get better frames when you downscale it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's keep things moving just because we do have a few more news stories to get through. The next one involves Halo Infinite, and this is not a news story, but Spennis, you're here as a guest, and I wanted to get your opinion on this because I know that you have Xbox, and I know you like Halo. So here's the story from IGN.com by Matt T. M. Kim. It says, following the news that Halo Infinite will be delayed, unsubstantiated rumors began circulating that Halo Infinite could be delayed as far as 2022 and drop support for the Xbox One altogether. These rumors were shot down by 343 Industries. In a tweet response, 343 community manager John Junizek said that, quote, there are no plans to change our 2021 release or the devices and platforms we'll be supporting, unquote. Junzek added, we're building Halo Infinite to be the best it can be on each device/platform. Spennis, I talked about this with Mac, and I love Mac to death once again, but he's not a console guy. So what are your thoughts on Halo being delayed? Does it affect your purchasing decision for next gen? Are you frustrated? How do you feel about it?
The answer on that is no.
No, that you're not frustrated?
I am not frustrated, and I am not affected because it is more so because of the order of which I am going to be of my next gen route.
What's your next gen route?
My next gen route is actually to go PlayStation 5 first.
Okay.
So I'm getting the more expensive one out of the way, and then eventually transitioning gradually over to the Lockhart.
Well, here's the thing though, we don't know the prices yet. What are you thinking that they'll be? It sounds like you have an idea what you're thinking they'll be.
Oh, I mean, I'm already saving up right now for the PlayStation 5 in that general direction. So I know that the PlayStation 5 is going to be sitting around that 500, 600 hole.
Sure.
And then the Lockhart, I should be able to scoop up a little bit later on. Maybe not in the first year, but within like that year 2, year 3 range. And pretty much it's going to have maybe hit it around its first drop. So that could be around that 250 to 290 range.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. So Halo's iconic, right? It's like when people talk about video games, I feel like Halo is right up there with Super Mario, if not above it. Like, those are two of the most iconic franchises of all time. Iconic IPs.
It is Microsoft's most iconic franchise.
Well, but yeah, it is. But I would put it in the same vein, in the same notoriety as Mario. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you put it up there with Zelda or Mario?
I would for the same the heart and soul of what an Xbox or a Microsoft franchise is what Halo is.
Yeah, Master Chief is basically their Mario, right? So do you think that this will affect their sales, that it's delayed, or because really their strategy was Game Pass, right? It's not consoles, it's games, it's play where you want. Yeah. And if the biggest game is not going to come out, even though they're not trying to sell consoles, don't you think that hurts their sales if Halo's not available day one when it was said that it would be?
It can, but I would say to the dedicated and to those that are maybe a little bit more say like loyal to the franchise, I don't think you're going to get affected as much. I don't think you're going to get affected as much. You might see a little backlash, but not as heavily as you would for the gamer that's just impatient and demanding on where's my shooter?
Well, we got some interesting comments in the chat. Galvatron says the most telling part is Microsoft just said an ambiguous 2021. That leaves a lot of room for exactly when Halo Infinite will release, and that's a very good point. Air Wilson, like you, is planning on getting the Lockhart, and Alex Mann agrees that Halo, the first 3 games were some of the best Halo games we ever got, and I feel like they're trying to bring Halo back to that original feel with Halo Infinite. That's my understanding of their goal.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. I would love to see Microsoft kind of do this in a little bit more of like some of their other, like some of these games that are doing this now, like maybe staggered a little bit, maybe focus more on the Xbox One to start, and then start tinkering and working toward a Series X smart delivery, just like they've been doing with about like 50 to 60 other different things.
Yeah, and they said it's going to be optimized for each console. But since you mentioned smart delivery, that's a perfect segue into our next news story. So thank you for that. This one is from GameSpot.com. Written by Jeremy Winslow, it deals with Call of Duty. Spennis, I almost called you Mac, dude. You guys look like you could be brothers. Here's the story. It says, ahead of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War reveal, which is slated for August 26th, for those of you keeping track at home, that is tomorrow. Editions of the game have leaked online. There are 3 available, with 2 that include a next-gen upgrade. Buying the standard edition of the current console gen will apparently not get you free access to the PS5 or Xbox Series X version of the game. So, Spennis, it looks like and sounds like smart delivery is not going to be a thing for the Xbox Series, or for Call of Duty. And it seems like it was kind of promised before. What are your thoughts on this, man? Are people getting cheated, or should we just not expect free upgrades?
It's Call of Duty. I'm not surprised.
Well, go more into that, though, because there's other...
That is the simple... I just kind of was saying that as a deadpan delivery. I was saying that as a deadpan delivery, just simply of like, it's Call of Duty. I am the furthest bit surprised from that, just simply because of that franchise is just known for, like, just sucking money. Like, just, you've got a vacuum cleaner and the money and money right there, and it's just gonna suck it right up. It's like Luigi sitting there with a Poltergust 4000.
Well,
just...
yeah, but you know what? And I agree with your point. Activision is known as the bad boys and girls of the industry, money hungry and gluttonous, and that's how people see them. But at the same time, they just gave us Warzone for free, right? And that's a pretty big deal. So I feel like Call of Duty is kind of trying to change the way that they do things. They've realized that you can't nickel and dime people as much. So to me, this is a surprising move that they are charging for the current gen version and also for the upgrade, as opposed to allowing that smart delivery that gives you the free PS5 or Xbox Series X version if you buy it current gen. Do you agree with that? Like, I feel like they've kind of changed their tune.
I'm going to throw Galvatron has thrown a very good point at us. Microsoft primarily was clear that smart delivery is solely up to the publishers themselves. Activision and Remedy have decided just not to use it. So this is standard. I think this is standard Activision procedure in terms of that. And Remedy, more so the people behind Control, have also said that unless you get this Ultimate Edition, that smart delivery is not going to be available for Control going from PS4 to PS5 or Xbox One to Series X.
Yeah.
So it was entirely optional. It's just more companies initially started to be more so in favor of it to not screw the consumer.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Go ahead, finish that.
Or should I say not screw over the consumer?
Yeah, and screw over is a strong word, right? None of us are entitled to anything. And if you buy it on current gen and then you get a next gen console, you know, maybe you should have just been patient or just play the backwards compatible version. To me, it's a matter of, is the current gen version going to be different than the next gen, right? We know that with NBA 2K21, it's going to cost more on PS5 than it will on PS4. Because it's a different game, is what we've been told, right? And so if Call of Duty is the same thing, hold on, just want to say, if Call of Duty is the same thing, then I can't really be mad at them for having people pay twice if it's a different game.
And I would also not be surprised because I'm going to mention this more so with NBA 2K14 when they transitioned from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, that 2K14 for the PlayStation 4 was more bare bones. In terms of design, and you didn't have all the elaborate patterns and things like that on the display screens. So I would not be surprised if you see maybe 2K kind of end up doing the same thing over again and just having it be a little bit more stripped down.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Spennis, we got to move on from the news. We're going to go a little bit longer today on it because we're not doing legalese. So I know you had a couple news stories you wanted to bring up, didn't you?
Well, we've already mentioned the possible Nintendo Direct already. So I'm also going to throw one more of just something that kind of hit a big viral thing, and it was a nice big viral dose of instant karma.
Tell us about it. What was it?
It involves popular streamer Tim the Tatman. He usually is known for playing Fortnite, but Tim the Tatman was known for saying that basically that Fall Guys is a kid's game and just how simple it is.
Okay.
I mean, granted that Fall Guys is not a very difficult game to get into, but it's not that simple to actually get a crown.
I've played it, yeah.
Had a nice little lengthy ride on the struggle bus, and actually even a hearty roasting from the Fall Guys Twitter as he was going through his conquest of getting his first win. The streams that he had, especially when he got his win, caught over 250,000 views.
Wow.
And he finally got it this past Wednesday, surviving a game of Hexagon to earn the win. It was so crazy. Even ESPN Esports had tickers and game counters, and even was posting out alerts. And as he struggled, and when he finally got that first win.
That's dope.
So,
man.
How often is it that you find like a major network that you and I both know of being ESPN, like primarily centered around sports?
Right.
ESPN has even digressed or even like progressed into esports and going through and having stories on that to even have this happen.
Yeah.
And trust me, it's like I played through the beta of Fall Guys like right around the weekend before, and I have double-digit crowns already. And
you're a pro though, Spennis. You're good at those types of games, man.
I mean, we played a lot of platformers as kids.
That's right.
So it kind of had that element in there, and it was like, yeah, it took me a matter of like 20 minutes on launch day to eventually get one.
Yeah. Nice. And see, I still haven't gotten one, and I've just been frustrated with it. Well, dude, thank you.
We will get you there.
We'll play it. We will play it. You and me. We'll get one. Well, thank you for mentioning that. Now, one last news story. We'd be remiss if we did not mention this. We won't get into discussion for the sake of time. But it was mentioned that Xbox came out in support of Epic's Apple restraining order. They basically said that it is not right for Apple to restrict access to the Unreal Engine updates because it would harm game creators and gamers. Phil Spencer tweeted that out. As you know, there's the whole free Fortnite thing going on. We don't really have time to discuss it today, but I thought it was interesting that Xbox took the time to come out in support of Epic in this battle. On that note, that has been our news for the week, and now over to you, Spennis.
All right, so normally, now that we've been going through kind of stuff that's been a little bit more recently, maybe a little bit into the recent past as well, why don't we take it a little bit further back and go into some gaming history? The first one that's kind of around that time frame, on August 20th, 2013, one near and dear to good old nice guy's heart, Splinter Cell Blacklist.
Yeah, love it. So let me just say this about Splinter Cell Blacklist. It's not regarded as the best Splinter Cell game. Came out 2013, like you said, and there has not been one since then. Now, I really enjoyed the game. I really, really enjoyed the multiplayer. The Spies versus Mercs, I thought it was absolutely amazing. The single-player story, it didn't have Michael Ironside voicing Sam Fisher. And so I feel like that's why it didn't get as much critical success as some of the other Splinter Cells, to the point that they didn't even release DLC for it, which I thought was crazy. Usually we get some single-player stuff. But I still enjoyed the game, and I hope that within the next year or so we get a new one.
Yep. And I know you've been pining for a new Splinter Cell from Ubisoft for at least the last, I say it, about a year or two.
Oh, more than that. Yeah, I've been waiting for a while. And it's hard because the community just doesn't exist on the previous one to keep playing the multiplayer. So I'm ready for a new one and see what happens to Sam Fisher.
Yep. And then on August 21st, 2001, the Nintendo 64 version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 came out. I mean, heck, we're getting a remaster of this very same game here in about less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, the first and the second. You going to pick that up?
I eventually will, because I grew up playing those and enjoying them. And eventually, like, I started out not knowing anything about it, but then it's like, okay, like years later, eventually it's like, oh, I learned how to do a kickflip in the game, or now I know all the other things I can do in it.
Yeah, dude, I have so many memories of that as a suburban black dude, growing up in the suburbs of Seattle. like I went to school with almost all white kids, right? Caucasian kids. And I was super into the Tony Hawk games, man. Like the music was killer. The tricks you could do were killer. You could just like grind on rails and flip and just get like infinite points. Like it was so much fun. And so I feel like this is kind of a cash grab on nostalgia, but Tony Hawk himself has said that it's going to be really, really well done. And so I'm excited. The other thing real quick is they were able to get the music licenses for all of the old songs. So I'm hyped for that.
For a good amount of them, yeah.
For a lot of them, yeah.
And then also another thing with this, remember what a game that was formerly or a grab that was formerly known as the mute grab?
Yeah, I do.
They actually will be Tony Hawk has actually gone and just said we're actually going to rename this trick, and it is actually named for the guy that actually came up with it. It initially was like a classless joke at the time of like the guy was kind of a quiet guy or a mute per se because he had like another impairment that didn't allow him to have very much interaction other than skateboarding. So they renamed it to the man who actually created the trick,
which I think is a very, very good move, and I think it's kind of cool. Like it's kind of cool to hear those feel good stories. You know what I mean?
And that also shows that Tony Hawk is also a class act.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And then we've got a couple of games that were around and released on August 27th. And I've even referenced them in Nerdflex questions. In 1996, Tekken 2 for the PlayStation.
Nice.
And then in 2003 with Soul Calibur 2.
Nice.
Another one that I referenced where I had the GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox question as far as the guest characters.
Classic fighting games. Love it.
And then last year, a notable one, Control. Control was also released last year on August 27th.
Game of the Year candidate, Game of the Year winner for a few gaming sites. And that's one of the ones we talked about earlier that won't have smart delivery. I still need to play that one.
Yes, and I have gone through the base game of it, and it is worth your time.
Oh, I'm hyped to get into it, man. There's so many that I missed that I just need to go back and do.
And that one is one that I definitely say is well worth your time to go back. It's a little bit. It definitely is a game that goes pew pew.
Okay, lots of shooting. Got it.
But there's also like different like paranormal elements in it, and it is definitely a
no
game
spoilers, Spennis. No spoilers, Spennis.
Oh, but there was no spoiler in saying paranormal.
I'm just joking around.
It was something that you kind of were expected.
Yeah, I get it. I was just joking around. Well, cool. Do we got any more history? Any more games for history?
I think that's all I got for gaming history. I wasn't able to kind of find a couple more that I really felt like delving deeper into.
No, that's perfect, dude. You got a lot. Well, that's fantastic. So, on that note, we'll move on to our next segment, which is the topic of the week, a segment where we talk about something relevant in gaming and give our opinions on it. And because I have Spennis on today, my good dear friend Spennis, we're talking about something that I know he's into and that I'm into. We're going to talk about Gotham Knights. Spennis, just to give you, and you already know this, but to give everybody kind of a rundown of what's going on, Gotham Knights was announced. It's a new co-op game in which Batman is dead, made by WB Games Montreal. Here's my question for you, Spennis. You and I have both played through the Arkham series. It was made by Rocksteady, and it's pretty much accepted that those are some of the best superhero games ever made. It's hard to make games based on movies. It's hard to make superhero-based games. Do you think that Gotham Knights will succeed without Rocksteady being at the helm? What do they need to do to make this game a good one?
Now Batman Arkham Origins was brought in by the
That's true.
WB Montreal.
That's true.
So, and Arkham Origins was not the best reviewed game in the Batman Arkham series. It was a pretty solid game for what it had. And actually, the Batman Arkham Origins was also the only one to have a sort of multiplayer element into it. So that brings Gotham Knights into the equation.
Yeah.
it's a multiplayer game. You're starting to see more superhero co-op multiplayer games. You're seeing Marvel do it first with Avengers.
Yeah.
You've got Gotham Knights coming in 2021, and even in 2022, Rocksteady is setting themselves up for Suicide Squad, which also was announced at the DC Fandom.
Yeah, now just so we can clarify, this is not a multiplayer, it is a co-op though. And one thing it will not have, Spinnis, and I want to get your opinion on this, it will not have couch co-op. It's only going to have online co-op. What do you think about that? Does that affect your buying decision at all?
Not at all, especially if you have multiple people on board. If you've got multiple people amongst your squad on board that want to get behind this, it is one that the story, I think, was probably going to be single player enough, but multiplayer wise, you may run into, especially if you're playing with your friends, some solid stuff. And this is a very interesting concept to see them go with a Batman game that does not have Batman in the arc at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing we should mention. In the trailer, it shows you playing as Robin and who else? I can't remember, but a bunch of the side characters.
You have Tim Drake's Robin. You have Barbara Gordon with Batgirl. Dick Grayson with Nightwing.
Okay, yep.
And the Red Hood that was formerly known as Jason Todd.
Okay, wow, good memory, Spinnis. Bravo.
So I did a little bit of research going into it as I was figuring out who the people were and what it was for the trailer. Which, because there's the multiverse of DC has had multiple forms of Robin, and of course, Grayson was also Robin at one point. Uh-huh. So it's like okay, now that Nightwing's in there, who's the other Robin that they're going to throw in there?
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, this is the Tim Drake Robin, which looks like it's going to make it very interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about what do you think it was that made the Rocksteady games so good? Because I don't feel like WB can just copy them, but I feel like they can still make this a solid game and just give it their own flavor. But what is it that you liked about the Rocksteady versions of Batman?
Well, it seemed like there was not much different really control-wise between gameplay-wise between Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Origins, along also with Arkham Knight. Like, there wasn't very much difference in the gameplay controls. The mechanics were solid. It was just that a lot of what different things with WB Montreal's was that it was a prequel to the rest of them. So there were things that certain things that may not have been received as well. So it's just simply stay with it wasn't that WB Montreal did something wrong. It was just there were a lot of things that they probably can improve upon for Gotham Knights to make this game what it is.
Yeah, and I also feel like it was something that kind of came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, we'd been wanting a really good superhero game for a while. And since then, we've gotten a few. We've gotten all the Batman stuff. We've gotten the Spider-Man. And I guess that's pretty much it. I played the Avengers beta. It was okay, but I don't really have as high hopes for that as I do for those old Batman games.
I'm even thinking that I may not immediately get into Avengers. I think you and I were discussing this the other night, that I think for me it's just because I still have a lot of things that I'm getting into that are taking up a good amount of my time. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima I'm not even finished with yet.
And that's a killer game.
And it really is a solid game.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Too much content and there's so much good stuff. Well, let us know in the chat what you guys think about this new Gotham stuff and also what you thought about DC Fandom. I'm hyped to see what everyone thinks, and I'm hyped to experience it. That has been our topic of the week. And Spinnis, now it's time for our next segment. A segment we like to call Kick or Kickstart, where we talk about a crowdfunding campaign and give our opinions on whether or not we think it should be kicked, meaning it should be kicked and booted out of here, or kickstarted, meaning it should be funded. And this week we have a really, really unique concept called Dwerve, and I did post the link to that in the chat if you're able to pull it up. Spennis, Dwarve is a tower defense dungeon crawler RPG, an SNES-inspired adventure about a dwarven tinkerer. Now, I saw this because there was another Kickstarter that I had backed, and they backed this one. And so it sent me a little email, and so I checked this out, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, and we'll talk about it. All right, Spennis? Sound good?
Yep.
So like it said, it's a tower defense dungeon crawler RPG, and here's what it says in the description. It tells the story of a young dwarven tinkerer named Dwarf who adventures into dwarven ruins to unearth the lost technologies of the ancient warsmiths, turrets, and traps. These are the only weapons that can protect the dwarves from the witch queen Vandra, the Wicked, and her army of bloodthirsty trolls and monstrous creatures. So if I could just kind of explain this game for those who are listening on audio that cannot see it, it's exactly what it said. It's a dungeon crawler, so like a Gauntlet Legends or a, what's that other dungeon crawler that's real popular? Diablo 3, where you're basically just on a map, 16-bit graphics. You're walking through and you're beating up bad guys, but it has tower defense elements, meaning you can put up towers that will shoot, or turrets rather, that will shoot the bad guys for you as long as they don't get beaten up. Now, Spennis, did you get a chance to take a look at this one, and what did you think about it?
I did get a chance to actually look over the stuff. I actually watched their little intro video to kind of see a little bit about what all was coming together with it.
Yeah,
I love the concept. It does a decent job of being able to blend 3 different genres of games together. I know that I've dealt more with tower defense and playing certain tabletop games. So I think it's Castle Panic or something along those lines.
right.
The graphics and animation look great, especially even with the 16-bit, and audio and sound design just sound great.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you've got to play it, like, it's got a playable demo. I didn't get into it. I didn't quite have enough time, but it's one of those things where it's like there's a playable demo present. So yes, you can see and actually try it out for yourself to kind of see if you want to back this thing up.
Yeah, for sure. Back that thing up. Sorry, I had to.
Quit being juvenile, nice guy. Quit being juvenile.
Spennis with the puns. Spennis with the puns.
You knew I was going to get there.
I love it. Well, dude, if Mac was here, he would have said exactly what you just said, which is it has to have a playable demo, and it does. I didn't get to play it either, but this looks really good, and I like that it's reasonably priced. Their estimated delivery is June of 2021, so they're setting realistic expectations. It's about a year out from being released, and to get a copy of the game, only $15 for a digital copy.
That was the very next note I had. It said the price point was solid for $15. It's right around what I would normally pay for an indie game of this nature. I think the game would feel right more at home for me personally on the go rather than just being in one place and playing.
I'm with you.
And then on top of that, my fears are that the goals for the Kickstarter may be, like, money-wise a little low, as we really don't know how far along they are for a June 21st or June 2021 release.
Right. Yeah, so to go into that, they've currently collected $9,626. Their goal is only $10,000. It does say that these people who are making the game quit their jobs to do so in game development. So they wanted to work on this full time. So they're all in with it. And I don't know what their funding is like. I don't know what their financial situation is like. But I know that with $10,000 and a year out release date, that they're probably not really paying themselves until the game is released and it starts to make money. So right. That said, I feel like we've covered everything that needs to be covered. Oh, except that it is being released for PC and Linux and Mac. I believe it is not being released for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, or Xbox One. So
they did mention in their video stuff eventually that is a stretch idea, is for them to go toward console. I think the first one that I think they should look at for that is definitely the Switch. The project looks like it really holds its own, and it's unique out of the box style for dungeon crawling and RPG elements, and having the tower defense of, oh, you've got to defend a certain area. Prevent it from being attacked. It's just out of the box enough for my taste.
Gotcha.
And especially if they can make this game mobile.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, man. This game would be so good on the Switch, dude. And especially if it's like a pick up and play, do a couple, dungeons here and there, as opposed to having to sit down at your computer, boot it up, then launch Steam. I just don't want to do that with indie games. I feel like my PC is more built for graphically impressive games, not for these bite-sized adventures. So
I mean, these bite-sized adventures may be better for, say, a PC, like an everyman's PC gamer.
Right. No, I'm with you 100%. So on that note, let us know in the chat what you think. Should this be kicked or kickstarted? Spennis, I want to get your vote. What do you think? Kicked or kickstarted?
I've mentioned throughout all that stuff I've mentioned, and normally whenever these things come along, I generally follow this up with, and for that reason, I'm out. Not this time.
Okay, so what's your vote? Surprise us.
The game, with it really holding its own in the unique out of the box style, the price point's solid. Everything looks like it's well put together. These guys are invested. These guys know what they're doing. They've been behind games before. I'm gonna say this, and for that reason, I'm in.
Oh,
Kickstarted.
He says it should be kickstarted. Maction in the chat says, nice guy's a broken record. Always talking about the Nintendo Switch and how these games need to be on the Nintendo Switch. It's true. I am, Mac. Love you too, brother. My vote for this one is a Kickstart as well. I feel like $15 is such a solid price point for something like this, and I feel like they have showcased enough of their talent, put out a playable demo, shown us some beautiful graphics. I think this game is going to be a big hit once it comes out, so I absolutely think that this should be Kickstarted, and it looks like most of the chat does as well. Spennis, anything else you want to say on this before we move on?
Nah, I think we're good.
All right. So it's time for our next segment. Spennis, I'm going to test your knowledge. What's that next segment?
It's Nerd Flex.
Woo! A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host, and you rarely do. Now, Spennis, I know you have some questions every single week, but since you're on the show this week, we can't take your trivia questions.
I'm now on the receiving end of this, and trust me, I know I've been on my receiving end of a good amount of questions just simply because I've also played a good amount of pub trivia with some friends. So it's like I've found myself learning different things from all sorts of different subjects.
Awesome. Well, dude, we got a couple questions that are coming into the chat. So if anyone has a question in the chat, or the one they want to put in the chat, please do, and put multiple choices and let us know the answer. Before we hop into some of these chat questions, we're going to do one that literally just popped up from our test bank. And I feel like karma is on your side, Spennis, because this one is a Pokemon question.
All right.
And I think you should get it right because I don't know the answer. So here's the question. What two Pokemon can Poliwhirl evolve into? What two Pokemon can Poliwhirl evolve into, Spennis?
I not only know both of them, I also know how.
Oh, dude, you get some bonus points then. Tell the people.
A Poliwhirl can evolve into a Poliwrath through a Water Stone.
Okay, I knew that one.
Now Poliwrath, and realize also that when Poliwhirl evolves into Poliwrath, it gains the fighting type along with its water typing. Okay. Now Politoed is the other answer to this, where it is a pure water type, and that is done primarily through Gen 1 and Gen 2 of trading the Poliwhirl with a King's Rock equipped to it.
Wow, Spennis, I'm very, very impressed, man.
And Slowpoke.
Oh, go ahead. Please continue.
On top of that, Slowpoke is also the other Pokemon that involves King's Rock. That you also trade that to have a Slowpoke become a Slowking. Otherwise, you have to level up a Slowpoke to level 37.
Kids at home, if you've been playing since Red and Blue, you will grow up to be like my man Spennis and know all the evolutions and what stones are used. Spennis, you're the man, dude. You got that right. I don't know about the stone stuff, but I'm going to trust your judgment. But the answer was Poliwrath and Politoed. So very good work. Let's keep things moving. We got a question in the chat from my usual co-host, Maction, trying to stump us today from his vacation. Nice enough to tune into the live viewing, though. His question, Spennis, do you want to read his question?
Okay. And I saw this. The Mega Man series features several robo animals. Which of the following is not one of them? Rush, Tango, Blues, Beat, or Treble?
Interesting. This is a tough one. Now, I know Maction knows that rule of thumb is that multiple choice questions are supposed to have 4 multiple choices. He broke that rule
5
and came at us with 5 just to be difficult.
There are 5. I know that. I know that Rush definitely is one.
That's the dog.
Yes, that is Mega Man's. That is Mega Man's dog, and that dog is red. Treble is Base's dog.
Yep.
So now I'm between Tango, Blues, or Beat.
It seems like there's kind of like a musical.
Yeah,
theme.
I definitely agree with that.
I don't know if Tango's one of them.
I'm torn to thinking between either Beat or Blues as well.
Why don't you pick one and I'll pick another one? I'm going to go with Tango. What do you want to go with? And then Mac.
I think I'm gonna go with Blues.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Tango. Spennis is going to go with Blues. Final answer. Mac, let us know in the chat what the answer is. Now, I don't know. Did we get another question in the chat? We got another one that's not multiple choice. And I feel like I should know this answer. So here's the other question. Go ahead, Spennis.
The question says, which game first had the Toasty dude pop up whenever a good play happened?
Ooh, this is tough, man. This is tough.
My first. Hang on. We got Max first of all.
Yeah.
Blues is the correct answer because that is actually the Japanese name for Proto Man.
Nice. So, Spennis, you got that right. I got it wrong, dude. We as a team are 2 for 2.
And then the Toasty guy. The first thing that definitely comes to mind when I think of the Toasty guy is Mortal Kombat.
You think that's the first one? Okay.
Or at least, if not the first, I know that it's at least one of them.
Okay.
I am torn between it. I'm torn more so thinking between it being either Mortal Kombat 2 or Mortal Kombat 3.
Gotcha. Okay. I honestly don't know, but I feel like I was just playing some game where the person popped up and said Toasty, but I can't remember what game it was. What are some other games the Toasty guy is in?
I feel like it's a midway. I feel like it's definitely a midway thing.
Why don't we just go ahead.
I think I'm going to say Mortal Kombat 2.
I'm going to go with you, Spennis. I'm never good at Nerd Flex. Spennis carries me today. Maction carries me other times. Alex, man, we see your question. We'll get to it next time. Galvatron, please let us know in the chat what the answer to that question is. That is our final answer. Right, Spennis?
Yeah, final answer, Mortal Kombat 2.
We'll wait for him to get that in the chat. And in the meantime, Spennis, favorite fighting game of all time? I'm curious because I know you're a fighting game guy. Which one would you go with?
I am a Tekken guy by more so.
Oh my gosh!
It is MK2,
dude. Spennis, you are good at this, man.
He also made a cameo in NBA Jam.
Dude, Spennis, these are literally coming in right now, these questions, and you're getting them right. Good work. All right, but favorite fighting game before we move on to our next segment. What you got?
I'm going to say I'm definitely solid. Like, the franchise for me is Tekken. Like, the Bandai Namco ones are just, you don't have too many buttons on the arcade sticks. I mean, you got young Spennis learning Tekken 2 like martial law doing backflip kicks. But I'm going to say for me, I would say probably the first one that kind of comes to mind is Tekken, like really Tekken 3 and Tekken 4.
Okay, fair enough. I'm surprised that it wasn't Super Smash Brothers or something.
I mean, Super Smash Brothers is there as well, but Super Smash Brothers, I was around like 9 when it came out. I was playing Tekken at a much younger age.
Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, we just went 3 for 3 on Nerd Flex. And so Mac, I feel like maybe we just need to phone a friend every week and have Spennis. I'm just saying, I'm going to get him on speed dial, Mac. No offense.
I mean, I had I mean, I think I'm also the only one that has consistently found good Pokemon questions to challenge you guys.
Every single week. Well, that has been Nerd Flex. Thank you, everyone, for that. You know what? We're skipping legalese today because I feel like it'd be blasphemous to do that without Maction. And so, Spennis, it's time for our last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about exactly that, the cool stuff that we've been into on Xbox, PS4, on PC, everywhere, and all the stuff we've been watching on Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, all that cool stuff. If you are here live, you have a job to do, let us know in the chat the cool, nerdy stuff you've been into, because we're always looking for more cool, nerdy stuff to get into. Spennis, let me know, what have you been watching and playing this past week?
I would say probably the first big thing that I've definitely been on the watching side has been I've been watching the old arcs of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime.
Nice.
I am now like Netflix like skipped like the entire like early rounds of Battle City.
Did they?
So yes, they did. They don't have season 2 up. They don't have season 2 up, which is bad because I got through the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc, and then all of a sudden it's now into the Waking the Dragons arc, or at least the stuff involving Noah Kaiba, and eventually a card called Shinado, King of the Higher Plane. So it's just like I've skipped oh, Joey getting Jinzo and all these other different things on top of that. But to kind of set all that off, I mean, YouTube wise, I've been watching Up Up Down Down, and
of course,
and their
and two nerds in a pod, of course.
Yep. And then also I've been watching something called Cutthroat Pokemon.
Ooh, what's that? Tell me.
The concept, the 4th Gen gamer came up with this as a whole thing involving a Food Network show called Cutthroat Kitchen. But instead, these guys are racing, playing a Pokemon game.
Sounds awesome.
This season has some big YouTube names of Kizaran, who is another speedrunner,